Today we're going to talk about a book that did more than just sit on a shelf. This thing literally created a cultural firestorm. We're talking about Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's 1774 novel, The Sorrows of Young Werther. And believe me, this book was so powerful it changed how people dressed, it gave its name to a psychological phenomenon, and, get this, it was even blamed for people's deaths.
All right, so let's dive right in. Now, you might think we'd start with a plot, chapter 1. But nope, we're actually going to start at the end. Or rather, with what happened after the book came out. Because honestly, the real-world fallout is every bit as wild as the story Goethe wrote.
So could a novel actually be deadly? I mean, think about that for a second. It sounds crazy, right? But back in the late 1700s, this wasn't just some hypothetical question. People all over Europe were seriously debating it. Because Goethe's novel, well, people didn't just read it. They lived it. They felt it. And for some, that influence turned out to be tragically, horribly real.
The reaction was, well, immense doesn't even cover it. This thing went viral, 18th century style. They called it Werther fever, and it was like a full-blown cultural contagion. All of a sudden, young guys everywhere were rocking Werther's signature look, that blue coat and yellow vest. But it wasn't all just fashion. The obsession took a really dark turn. It was blamed for a wave of copycat suicides, so many in fact, that places like Denmark and Italy straight up banned the book. They treated it like it was a public health crisis.
So, you've got to be wondering, right? Who is this character? Who is this guy who could inspire this much passion and, well, this much tragedy? To really get the Werther fever, we have to get to know the man himself. So, let's dive into the story. Okay, so the first thing you need to know is how the story is told. It's all done through letters. The whole novel is just a collection of letters from our main guy, Werther. This means we get a front row seat right inside his head. It's super intimate, totally unfiltered. And this style was classic for a movement happening in Germany called Sturm und Drang, which literally means storm and stress. Think of it as a rebellion against all the cold, hard logic of the time. It was all about big, raw, messy emotions. This was basically the spark that would ignite the whole Romanticism movement.
So our story kicks off with Werther running away from it all. He escapes to this idyllic little village called Walheim. He's a young artist, super sensitive, and he's just looking for some peace and quiet. And he finds it, big time, by just losing himself in nature. His first letters they're just overflowing with happiness. He's talking about the beautiful countryside, the simple life, and how connected he feels to everything around.
Yeah, he calls it a landscape of tranquil allure. And that's a key thing to get about Werther. For him, the world outside is always a perfect mirror of what's going on inside. So right now, everything's calm, everything's beautiful, both inside and out. It's all just harmony.
And then Lade shows up. Her full name is Charlotte, but he calls her Lade. And just like that, all that peaceful harmony, it's shattered. He is completely, instantly smitten. To him, she is absolute perfection. But there's a catch. Of course there's a catch. The guy standing right next to her, Albert, that's her fiancé. And just like that, the fuse is lit for a love that's totally hopeless and will become completely all-consuming.
So yeah, it's a love triangle, but it's so much more than that. This is really a clash of philosophies, a battle between two guys who represent two totally different ways of living and thinking.
And this right here is the heart of the conflict. On one side, you've got Werther. He's all feeling, all passion. He's impulsive, unpredictable. He's the living, breathing embodiment of that Sturm und Drang, storm and stress we talked about. And on the other side, you've got Albert. He's Mr. Reason. He's calm, composed, orderly, a perfect symbol of the Enlightenment, which was all about logic and keeping your cool. These two are polar opposites, and poor Lot is stuck right there in the middle.
So Werther isn't totally clueless. He knows this love is going nowhere, so he tries to do the smart thing. He packs up, leaves Walheim, and gets a respectable job working for the court in Weimar. He's probably thinking, new city, new job, this'll fix me. But he absolutely despises it. He's this middle-class intellectual, and he just can't stand the snobby, rigid, totally fake world of the aristocracy. It's suffocating.
The final straw comes when he gets publicly embarrassed, just completely humiliated at a social gathering. It just confirms everything he fears. He doesn't belong, he'll never fit in. And what's his reaction? He quits. He just walks away from his career and runs right back to Walheim, the one place that holds both his happiest memories and the source of all his misery. And him going back, that's the big turning point in the book. All that early hope and happiness, gone. From this moment on, it's a downward spiral. We're about to watch him completely unravel.
Hey, remember how we said the landscape was a tranquil allure at the start?
Well, that's over. The exact same natural world that he found so beautiful before, now he sees it as a landscape of internal desolation. Once again, the world outside is just a reflection of his soul, and right now, his soul is a wasteland of turmoil and despair.
And as he sinks deeper into this despair, something interesting happens in his head. He starts to romanticize his own misery. It's not just a personal heartbreak anymore. No, in his mind, it becomes something bigger, something heroic. He starts seeing himself in other tragic stories, and he frames his own pain as this noble struggle against a cold society.
Everything builds to this one final, heartbreaking moment. Lade, who's been torn this whole time between her feelings and her duty to Albert, finally reaches her breaking point. She's overwhelmed by his intensity and she begs him, just leave her be. She actually forbids him from visiting her anymore. And for Werther, who has built his entire world, his entire reason for being around her, this is it. This is the end. The final door slams shut.
And his response is chilling. It's so planned out, so methodical. This isn't some impulsive act. He calmly goes and borrows Albert's pistols, making up some excuse about a trip. He has one last, incredibly emotional night with Lade, reading poetry. A single moment of passion passes between them. And then, he just leaves. He goes home, writes his goodbyes, and shoots himself. He doesn't die instantly. He suffers for 12 long hours.
And that brings us right back to where we started, back to the real world. Because now that you understand the story, now that you feel the depth of Werther's despair, you can really start to understand why it had such a massive, massive impact.
The impact was so huge, it actually gave its name to a real psychological term, the Werther effect. Sociologists still use that term today. It describes that disturbing and very real spike in suicides that sometimes happens after a suicide is widely reported in the media. And the original case study for this whole phenomenon? Yep, it was the aftermath of this very novel.
So why are we still talking about a book that's nearly 250 years old? What makes it stick around? I think it's because it's a huge challenge to an idea we still grapple with today, the idea that logic and reason should control everything. Goethe is basically asking, hey, what happens when we push our emotions down? What crucial part of being human do we lose when we try to be purely rational all the time?
And that's really the core tension of the whole book, isn't it? It's this paradox. On the one hand, Goethe shows us that passion is what makes life worth living. It's the source of art, beauty, meaning. It's noble. But on the other hand, that exact same passion, when it's not balanced by anything else, is totally destructive. It's what makes Werther so brilliant in feeling, but it's also what makes it impossible for him to survive in a world that runs on rules and practicality. So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. In our world today, a world that's so obsessed with data, with logic, with being efficient, have we maybe lost a bit of that intense, all-in, Werther-style passion? And if we have, are we just protecting ourselves from its destructive side? Or are we also missing out on its power to create something truly, profoundly beautiful?